everyone, and welcome to The Labyrinth, a podcast produced by Virtual Executive Director. My name is Becky Brett, and I'm your host. I'm an intuitive executive coach for artists, content creators, and entrepreneurs, basically anyone who uses their creativity to make a living. Now, as you've heard me say before, the mantra of The Labyrinth is release, receive, return. And using this mantra as a starting point, I help top performers release what is blocking their progress, receive new helpful beliefs, behaviors, relationships, and thought patterns, and then support them as they integrate or return these lessons into their lives. If this sounds like something you'd like in your life, the application to work with me is in the show notes. Or you can DM me on whatever social media platform you happen to find me. This week on the podcast, I got to geek out coach to coach with Halle Eavelyn. Halle is a transformational coach, speaker, and writer who helps people break out of their old patterns so they can live their best lives, the ones they always yearned for. Drawing on over 30 years of business experience in software, real estate, the movie business, and travel, she works with a variety of intuitive modalities. Her work is deep and extremely fast, with clients experiencing powerful shifts easily. So she chooses one-on-one and group clients who are ready for extraordinary growth. After her spiritual awakening in Egypt, which you will hear about in this episode, she wrote the spiritual travel memoir, Red Goddess Rising, which tells the story and all about the subsequent trips she's led up the Nile for over a decade. A former blogger for the Huffington Post, she is also the author of 100 Ways to Be in Joy, and her latest book, Nutri-Glamorous: How to Be Beautiful Inside and Out. Please welcome into the labyrinth, Halle Eavelyn. Hello, everybody. I am here with Halle Eavelyn, and she, like me, is a coach. I am so excited to bring you this conversation as we walk the virtual labyrinth together because Halle has a unique perspective on coaching, spirituality, personal development, and I can't wait for her to bring it to you. So I'm going to stop talking for a second, let Halle introduce herself. Halle, tell us a bit about you.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Yay. I am a transformational coach and author and a tour leader. I lead spiritual tours all over the world. In fact, that's what led to my coaching. So I work hand in hand with spirit, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. I like to say your soul talks to my soul and tells me what to tell you. So I don't understand my work, but that's what it is. And people are always like, oh my gosh, your work sounds just like, and then they'll name like Dolores Cannon's got some techniques that sound a lot like what I do. I heard the other day that Joe Vitale had some sort of a really fast system for helping remove blocks. And somebody was saying, oh, that sounds exactly like what you do. But I'm just like, okay, I downloaded it and I'm just here to like help people. And that's my job, is help people wake up and then help people get to the very highest level that they possibly can. I believe that spirit has said to me, so spirit has said this, so that my biggest belief is we are here to be and to be in joy. And what we do is less important. What is more important is how we be in this world. And so that's my job, is to help people with that.
I love it. My personal mission statement is to create moments of joy.
Beautiful.
So we are super in sync. Well, Halle, if you are ready, we can step into the virtual labyrinth and talk about this process of releasing, receiving, and returning. And we will just see where the conversation takes us, and we may talk about your personal life, your work, whatever the path holds for us. Let's explore. You ready?
Yes. Well, I have to tell you, I I came back from my first trip to Egypt ever, having no longer been an atheist because I had this giant spiritual awakening on the trip. And I ended up putting a labyrinth in my backyard. We painted a concrete labyrinth. I had a patio home, a townhouse that has a patio home, and that patio got turned into a labyrinth. There was just enough room to pour it, and it was kind of scaled down, but it really brought back, when you said we're going to walk the labyrinth today, it brought back the memory of having my own labyrinth and really just getting to be in that space every day. And there was a little seed of life, the 7 interlocking circles, that's the center of the flower of life. There was a seed of life at the center of the labyrinth. So I'm so happy to take this journey with you today.
Well, I'm excited. Last spring, I got a bee in my bonnet and built a labyrinth in my backyard too.
Yay.
And so did my dog. She was very excited about it. So yeah, I was saying before I was so joyfully interrupted by my dog warning me of the UPS guy that I built a labyrinth in my backyard, and just having it that accessible meant so much. There's something about like, I love the larger labyrinths that take longer to process, but it's so awkward when someone else is there, isn't it?
Like, you want to just there's really only room for one person on the path at a time. So you end up stepping out, and then, yes, I agree. Yeah. So where everyone's going to get to walk their own labyrinth today. There you go.
So, all right. You started out as an atheist, went to Egypt, and had a spiritual awakening. I mean, you say it was within literally one breath.
Yes,
Tell us
sure was
about that.
Yes. I love the idea that it happened in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, but it did not. It happened in the dining room on the cruise ship. I mean, I was sailing the Nile, but still, it was like sort of just not what I would like. If I had a place to pick for my spiritual awakening, I would have picked something other than the dining room of the cruise ship. But there it was. And I was in the middle of doing a meditation with somebody because she had asked me what I was afraid of. And I was like, oh, I'm not afraid of anything. And then she goes, really? And I was like, well, I mean, I'm afraid of death. But what I meant to, like, what I didn't say and what was like behind that was I had panic attacks about dying and my fear of not being me anymore since I was 10 years old. Because I went to my dad my 10th birthday, I went to my father and I said, Daddy, I'm going to get older, and then I'll grow up, and then I'm going to get older, and then I'm going to die. And then what? And he goes, well, I don't want to lie to you the way that my parents lied to me. Everybody gets lied to. You go in the ground and the worms eat you. And like, you should never tell a 10-year-old that. I'm just like, make something up. Tell her when she's older, whatever. Anyway, so panic attacks ensued, and it was awful. And and I never really talked about it. Like my sweetie knew, but like most people, I just never mentioned it. And I had not told that to this woman doing this guided meditation with me at the dining table. But she said, her intuition, I'm sure, she knew what was going on. And she was like, really, you're not afraid of anything? And I was like, well, I'm afraid of death. And she just took my hands across the table and started walking me through this meditation. And in the middle of it, she said, it was a whole series of things, which she said, I'm saying something to you. What am I telling you? And what she was telling me was, you will never die. But I got it at that moment on a cellular level. And it just changed everything. And I burst into tears at the table, and I cried for, I still don't know, 30 seconds, 20 minutes, somewhere in there. And then as I was coming back and I went to tell my partner what had happened, I slipped on the stairs, going up the stairs from the dining room, because it's on the, the bottom of the cruise ship. And I looked down to see what I had slipped in, and I had slipped in my shoes because there was just sweat pouring from my hands and my feet because so much energy had moved through me in that one moment. And I realized, like, I was wet, like just dripping wet in that moment. It was so powerful. And after that, the panic attacks went away and never came back. And that story and a bunch of others, and the stories of like the trips I've been leading up the Nile ever since, because I've done like I don't know, I think 26 or 27 tours now of Egypt, where I just bring other folks. That story is told in Red Goddess Rising, which was the first book that I came out with. That was my spiritual travel memoir. So if anybody's interested, they can get it on Amazon, Red Goddess Rising. But that's the story of that's like the crux of the spiritual awakening. It was so powerful that it eventually changed everything. In that moment, I knew that I was forever changed, but I didn't understand the implications that it would have. I mean, it's really, why I coach now and why I feel like I'm here to help people and to wake people up. And at the time, it just was the most profound moment in my life, and probably still is.
You have 2 other books out, right? You have 100 Ways to Be in Joy, which, y'all, I'm going to get that book immediately because joy is my life. And Nutri-Glamorous, How to Be Beautiful Inside and Out.
Yes.
When did Nutri-Glamour, is that out now? Nutri-Glamorous?
Yeah, it literally has just hard launched like in the last week or two. And it is it's kind of a manual for women, like adult women, women in their 40s, their 50s or older, to really get to live a life that is the one of their desires. There's a lot of my basic coaching stuff is in there. I love what I call bumper sticker coaching. I want stuff that you can remember in a pinch, and I want stuff that will inspire you, and that you'll, if when it's an emergency and you want to kill the very next thing that comes into your path, I want you to be able to go, I remember my little bumper sticker. So there's a lot of my favorite bumper sticker coaching in there, and just real guidance for women who are looking to have a really beautiful exterior as we get older. I think that that's really important to us. We're aging differently. There used to be, maiden, mother, crone were the 3 phases. And somehow we managed to forget the queen phase, which is a really big piece. And as we're living longer, we get to be, in the queen phase, where we are not somebody's child. We are not, the ingenue. We are no longer, the kids are grown and off doing their lives. We are not yet the old wise one. We have like this 20 or 30-year period or longer where we get to really what it's time for us now. And so this book is about everything. There's different chapters, and you can go through any way you want, but there's like a chapter called Eat, and one called Breathe, and one called Give. And so you can really just take a mini dive or a deep dive into the different areas. And thank you for asking me about that. I appreciate it. I love the book, and I love we want to create a whole movement around it, because Nutri-Glamorous is about really coming into alignment with what you want for your own body and your own health and your own well-being, and bringing more of your message to the world.
And what I'm hearing from you too is that outer beauty is what you define it for yourself.
Yes.
Right? I mean, we're not trying to fit into some mold. So maybe let's release that immediately. If some of y'all are thinking about that right now, like, well, but I don't want to, I'm never going to be a size 2 and whatever the Photoshop equivalent, you know what I mean? Like, let's release that right now. Release that thought from your head, please, because that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about defining beauty for yourself, right?
In Nutri-Glamorous, we actually talk a lot about beauty cons, and the beauty con is like the woman who has this amazing exterior and inside she's totally messed up, or she's judgy McJudgy pants, or she's trying to make you conform to the way that she is. So there's that whole piece, and then there's imposter syndrome, because of course we will do that to ourselves as well. We will, we have a tendency to tell ourselves a story of, oh, Becky has this, and so I don't. And so there's actually techniques and tools that I share in the book about how to really get over that, and to give yourself the gift of a quiet, supportive mind, so that because
Mm,
you're your worst inner critic, right? Like
right.
that's the big thing. Um, Now is probably a good time to mention that I have a gift for your listeners.
Ooh,
So
we love gifts. Tell me about it.
it is called Three Keys to Slay Your Inner Critic. And it is
Yes,
some of
please.
some of these tools that I'm talking about. Some of the simplest ones are in this really beautiful downloadable PDF. And that's called Three Keys to Slay Your Inner Critic. And it is available on the homepage of my website. So you can just go to Halle, Halle, Eavelyn, EAV like victory, ELYN like ninja.com, HalleEavelyn.com. And it's right there at the bottom of the homepage, Three Keys to Slay Your Inner Critic. So if your inner voice is telling you like you suck or you can't, or well, you could if, or you're too old, or you don't have the money, and
Mm.
your husband or your wife or your kids won't let you, or any of that stuff, Three Keys to Slay Your Inner Critic will help quiet your mind so you can go do your work in the world.
Oh my gosh. I have so many questions. And so many avenues where I want to like take us down. There's like, I love the queen phase. I am all about the queen phase right now, like personally. And I think a lot of my listeners are too. I love the quiet, supportive mind. I want to like, I, okay, so let me pick one because our time together is unfortunately limited. Um, Tell me about a time or the time when you were able to and what you had to let go of in order to quiet your own mind.
Well, this is a really big story arc of my life, but I feel like it's
Mm,
very important to share. So if it's okay, I'm going to take a few minutes and dive
yeah.
in here. Because it wasn't just about quieting my mind, it was actually about living my life's purpose. But of course, my mind was constantly like, shouldn't you do this? And don't you want to do this? And why aren't you doing this? And haven't you done this yet? And so it really was about like just getting to that place where it built to a fever pitch and like something had to give. So I was living in LA. I had been with my life partner and my business partner for over 20 years. We ended up together. He and I were together like 23 and a half years.
Mm,
So sometime around 22 and a half, I was leading my 10th Eat, Pray, Love tour to Bali. And um, okay, I'm going to back up another minute because there's another piece to
okay.
this that's very important. I had a few months before I had been to Venice, and I had been to this thing that I call like Landmark Forum on steroids, if you're at all familiar with Landmark. It was this weekend where basically there were a lot of corporate people. They would build you down to tear you down to build you up. That was
Mhm.
the process. And so there was a lot of shouting
Mm,
because they were trying to like impress information on you in a particular tone that sounded like you were just being yelled at all the time, but they were sure that it was like very, the tone was always very even and always the same. And there were different
mm,
processes that you would do, different meditations. And one thing that we did was we broke a board. And I had broken a board before. I got the list of things that you could put on the board that you were going to break through. And I was like, been there, done that, got the
mm,
t-shirt. So I asked, I was like, well, there's nothing on this list. Like, what is it? And what came up for me was, I'm afraid of being too big in the world. And I ended up breaking through the board, breaking through. I am afraid of being too big in the world. And then, like 3 months later, I'm in Bali. I'm leading my 10th Eat, Pray, Love tour, and I meet this woman. And we just fell madly in love. I don't even know how to explain it. It was like 1 minute I'm in love with my guy who I've literally like loved for 22 and a half years and I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And the next minute, I cannot said was like a crazy teenager. It was insane. And with my first crush, that's how I felt. And so for a year, we were long distance as I tried to figure out, am I leaving him? She had like been born and raised in Miami. She had her whole family here. Her business was here. There was no way it had to be
mm.
Miami. And I'm like, you are going to like give up everything, and start over in your mid 40s like almost late 40s. Is this going to be okay with you? And so I grappled with that for almost a year. And I asked Spirit lots of questions during this time. And Spirit basically said, you can stay, but you'll stay small. And that's a choice. And
Mm.
ultimately, that was why I left. So I gave everything up. I took, 10 boxes out of my 4-bedroom house, left him,
Wow.
left the animals, moved 3,000 miles across the country, and moved in with her. And we've been together now 7.5 years. And my coaching practice is about 6 years old. And it really led to me being a coach. It led to me being a healer. It led to me doing the work that I really came here to do. And it led to a different kind of partnership, one that's very equal. And
Mm.
not because she's a woman necessarily, although I think that's part of it. But we really are. We're very supportive of each other, and we're also sovereign entities, which was something that was
Mm.
never true before. I had a very codependent relationship. So now when I look at like my mind and my mind being quiet most of the time, my mind is super supportive of me and my growth and my
Mm.
spiritual work. And then sometimes I just went through this period a few weeks ago. My mind wants to go back and go down those old neural pathways and play those old games. And now, of course, I have so much better tools. I mean, you literally get to this place where you're like, physician heal thyself kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Would you consider yourself in your queen phase now?
Oh, yes, very, very much so. Yeah. I mean, I think any woman by the time she gets to her 50s is like that. My
Yeah.
sister is an exception because she had kids really late. So, like, she's got 2 teenagers in her early 50s.
Mm.
And I mean, I love my niece and nephew, but I'm like, thank God that is not me. So, so I get to like really go and explore and enjoy
Yeah.
and live a very beautiful life that is a life of my own creation. And I want to share this with everybody because I think this is so important. I made a lot of sacrifices to be where I am now, but I also deliberately said, when it was scorched earth and I was starting over, I
Mhm.
said, what do I want? And I asked that question. And then, based on the answers that I heard, I began to take baby steps. One of my favorite tools is to ask, what's my next smallest step? And
Mm.
during this period of like this 11 months where I was still living with my ex and I hadn't moved in with my girlfriend, I asked myself, like, what's my next smallest step, a lot, because I couldn't see any further than that. And I had to be in total trust at all times. And we have these moments of trust. We
Mhm.
can have them. And it's a matter of understanding you cannot necessarily see all the way through the shining path to the end, but you can make your choice of what you want that end goal to look like. And then you can ask, what's my next smallest step? And that will help you get every step of the way there, because you only really ever need to see, where do I need to put my foot now?
Yeah. Wow. That is, oh my gosh. So, I mean, if we're on the labyrinth path, you let, you basically let go of everything. You released everything to become who you are now. Um, and then it sounds like you've received everything back just in a more supportive form.
Yeah, everything and more, because I have stepped into my own power.
Mhm.
A lot of women are in, and I'm actually writing the sequel to Red Goddess Rising now. Now that
Ooh.
Nutra Glamorous is out, I'm working on Red Goddess Reborn, which is the
Mm.
story of the 20 years after my spiritual awakening. And I find so many women are with men who they love and who they want to support and nurture. And the men love them. It's not like, these are abusive men. It's just there isn't so much equality. It becomes
Mm.
about you reforming your life around him. And now, I am a sovereign entity. As I said, those
I
words
love
have
that
become so
phrase too.
important.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that phrase. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
No, I agree with you. Those words are worth pausing over and celebrating. I all I want to say is getting to be my own person has so much value and has shifted me so much also. And that's waiting. If you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I need that, that's waiting for you on the other side of this. And yeah, it's hard when you're in it. It's hard to be in any kind of struggle when you're in it. But the question is, what do you want? And you get like, I'm in my almost mid 50s, almost, and you get to a place in your life where you go, oh, there is no more time for me to figure this out or screw around or delay or whatever. This is my life that I get to have now. And when you think about it, it's like standing at the center of the labyrinth. Like, what's the point of the labyrinth? Is as you walk it, you get to that sacred pause in the middle.
Yes.
And you're on your path. You're fully on your path. You're already at the center of the labyrinth. And that's the time when you get to say, like, and if we use that as a metaphor for like our long lives, when you're halfway there, you get to say, okay, well, how do I want to create? And is what brought me into the middle of the labyrinth what's going to get me back out? Maybe it's something completely different. Maybe I want something completely different. So I think it's really important that we spend time asking those questions. And not just because of like a quote unquote midlife crisis, because as we grow and as we evolve, we want more things, different things, new things, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting. Okay. So calling it a midlife crisis seems so demeaning. And I've never had this thought articulated before. So this is new for me, but I've always been irritated at that because like you said, we grow, we evolve. And to call it a midlife crisis just seems like it's so dismissive.
Well, the typical midlife crisis is you get a divorce, or you get a Porsche or whatever. But what it is it's really calling to something deeper and saying, hey, I'm not happy with things being in the status quo. Joe Dispenza talks about the fact that, from a neuroscience perspective at 37, I believe, that we are fully evolved. We're done like bringing new things into our world. I had dinner at a great Japanese restaurant here in Miami that I go to pretty regularly. And I had dinner with a young woman who was a client who is 29 or 30. I don't remember, but that age, entrepreneur, fairly sheltered, from Texas, fairly sheltered. And she just gotten into sushi and she ate this appetizer. We gave her this appetizer to eat. That was our favorite. And she was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is the best tasting, whatever it was that I've ever had in my life. And I looked at her and I thought, oh my gosh, that used to be me. Like just the joy that you get from simply putting a bite of food into your mouth. And I thought to myself, I can have that again. I can have that today. I can choose to be as enraptured in that one bite as she is, even though I've had it before. It's still delicious and amazing. And the question is, am I going down those neural pathways and saying, who cares because I've been down there already and I know what to expect? Or am I coming at it with that beginner's mind? And so I feel like a way to honor the midlife crisis, those moments where you ask, isn't there something more? Isn't there something bigger? Is to go back to that beginner's mind and to say, what would I love? As I'm starting my way back out of the labyrinth, what is my desire, my greatest desire? Even if it's just, what is my greatest desire in this moment? And I feel like if we all just freaking listened to that still small voice inside of us, that intuition, that gut instinct that says go left when you were getting ready to turn right. And we didn't just have that jaded place where we go, shut up, I'm still going to the right. When what would have happened if we had turned left would have changed our lives irrevocably in an amazing way. I feel like our lives would be a lot happier and we would have more joy in them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, okay, we're in the middle of the labyrinth. We have received whatever we're going to receive. Next comes the return and integrating all of this back into your life. How did you integrate all of these changes? Like, how did you find that experience? Was it 7 years ago?
Almost. Now, well, no, actually, it was 7.5 years ago that I met Marlene, my girlfriend, but it was about six and a little bit that I was 6.5 years ago that I was starting my business
Mm-hmm.
and really asking because so personally, there was this I Love Lucy metaphor going like in the background. Most people have heard of I Love Lucy, but I said it to somebody who was in her 20s or something. And she just looked at me blankly. And I thought, oh my gosh, how can you not have Lucille Ball in your life? How do
Yeah,
you not have like the chocolate episode or the
exactly.
stomping grapes episode in your life? But my admiration of Lucille Ball has gotten extreme because in the 1950s, she met, fell in love with, and married a Cuban band leader, and then was still married to him through the Cuban Revolution, which is a whole nother conversation. But I've been to Cuba and led
Mm.
tours to Cuba and gotten to see the terrible oppression of the Castro regime and to see how it really shaped the Cuban people over the last 60 years. And my girlfriend is Cuban, her family is Cuban, Miami is Cuban in many regards, and
Mm.
Venezuelan and Brazilian. And I mean, it's the gateway to Central and South America. So I'm living in LA and there's a big Mexican influence. And I'm like, but and there's Hollywood. And I'm like, an LA girl in my heart, California girl in my heart. This is perfectly fine. And now I'm going to move to another tropical environment and it's going to be perfectly fine. No, it was like moving to a foreign country. And they literally called me La Gringa, the gringa, or La Americana, the American, even though in the families here, there are, people are second or even third generation American, but everybody's Cuban first and American second. And that
Mm.
had been, and then here I am like, mi español es muy malo, which means my Spanish is terrible. So yeah, that was and yeah. So personally, there was this kind of whole fish out of water period that I really had to integrate. And my reaction physically was I began to break things, not on purpose. Things would fly
Like
out of
literally
my
break things.
hands. Oh my God. I would break glass like we had just closed on our house, this house that we've been in. We had just closed on the house and we were celebrating. It was New Year's Eve. We closed that day. And I had these gorgeous champagne flutes that I had gotten to celebrate. And in the middle of pouring champagne, my other hand like flashed out and the base of the glass, it tipped over, the base of the glass just broke off. And my
Oh,
girlfriend is like, oh my God, this is horrifying. What a terrible omen. And I'm like, wait, in the Jewish religion, when you get married, you break the glass and it's good luck. Nothing worse will ever happen to you than this broken glass. Mazel tov, yay. And she was like, oh, okay, I can get behind that. And I was like, thank God, because it was like the 20th thing I had broken. It was, I mean, I like shattered unbreakable pot lids on tile
oh
floors
my
into a million pieces. And it was because, and they thought I was clumsy. And I'm like, no, I could go 20 years without having broken something, but my energy was just not aligned yet. And after about a
Mm.
year, I stopped breaking things. So I'm sharing this. I'm sharing this because it's so like we don't really realize how we are in the world, and that sometimes even in the midst of something amazing, wonderful, and joyous happening, you can be completely out of your body or out of alignment or whatever. And it's a chance to kind of recognize that, acknowledge it, move forward through it anyway, and have that be okay. So I wanted to share that. I think that's like really important for people to know, like, yes, wonderful things are happening, and you may be breaking like every third thing that you touch, and that's okay. So yeah. And then I was just going to say, I struggled in my business for a couple of years as well. And again, that was a matter of coming into alignment and also making choices. When you don't have clarity, like this is what I teach with all my clients. First thing, whether it's a private client or a group coaching client, the first thing we touch is the clarity. Because when you don't have that clarity as a creative person, as an entrepreneur, it can be so hard to have anything move in the direction that you desire. When you get that clarity, then all of a sudden, the 12 clients come rolling in, or the painting gets done, or whatever. And so that clarity is absolutely key. And so if you're having a hard time, that was one of my biggest lessons. Take a big step back, go to that 65,000 foot view level, and ask yourself, is this clear? Is this clean? Is my energy clear here? Because that can make a big difference.
I think people are afraid to get clear, because what if it's the wrong choice? What if it's the wrong? And the more we can get comfortable with the thought that there is no real wrong choice, there's no wrong decision. It's not, you're either you'll always learn something out of it, or what if it's exactly what you need and you succeed beyond your wildest dreams? So,
I love what you just said, though, is so important. What if you succeed beyond your wildest dreams, and what if everything just happens for you? So, Abraham, which is this channeled group, I'm sure you've heard of them. Abraham has this game they play called the what if game. And so you can take anything negative and turn it positive by saying, what if this great thing happens? Or what if this great thing happens? What if I succeed beyond my wildest dreams? What if my next client is coming in tomorrow? What if unexpected money comes to me? What if new ideas flow? And as you do that, no matter how down in the doldrums you are, no matter how depressed you feel, no matter how confused you are, it buoys your energy, it lifts you, and it gets you out of that place. Because what's so hard for us about manifestation is we're usually in two camps at the same time. I call this the desire snag. So we're in the camp of, I desire this thing, and we're also at the same time, because we want it, we're also in the camp of, I have the lack of it. I don't have it. And that can keep us stuck for a really long time. Focusing from that what if place gets us fully into the camp of the desire, and then the lack of it can just go away. The thing can show up.
I love it. Where do you find your clients struggling in integrating like their queenliness?
That's interesting. That's not something that I really talk about in that way. For me, it's more about where I see a huge struggle is the sacred divine feminine, which is the queen concept is part of that. But it's the idea of being okay with creating and receiving. And that speaks to what you were talking about, because think about it. The queen's job is to sit on her throne and receive, right? We have such a hard time with that, because we live in a masculine world. We live in a patriarchy, and that patriarchy says, get out there and do. And if you do and you work hard, then you succeed. And the receiving energy, the creative energy, is coming from a completely different place. And yet what is the process of creation? Creating life, right? That's the role of the feminine, is to grow and birth new life. So as we desire things, it's where I see the struggle, and what I think is so, so important is giving yourself permission. Like understanding that no one on the outside can ever give you permission for the things that you desire. You're getting those from the inside. It is an inside job, and it's between you and spirit. And you're as Reverend Michael Beckwith says, you are on purpose with a purpose. And so, for those of you that you like your parents said to you, like you were a mistake, the diaphragm was under the bed or whatever. That's how my mom came into the world. So anybody whose parents said like you were a mistake, there aren't any mistakes in God.
Exactly.
There aren't any mistakes in the universe. And so you're here with a purpose, and you at that place where you're in that queen phase, that, kids are grown and gone, but you're not quite ready to be that wise elder yet. You get to say yes to you and give yourself permission for the things of your desires and the things of your dreams. Everybody gets to say yes or no many, many, many times throughout the day. And I, one of my signature things is the energy of yes. And I really encourage everybody to ask yourself the question, how can I stay in the energy of yes throughout my entire day? And to ask that question in little moments, like, if I make this choice here, will that keep me in the energy of yes? And to do your best to stay in the energy of yes, because that perpetuates more and more yes. And I just wanted to share that with everybody. If you want more of the things that you desire, then ask yourself, how can I stay in the energy of yes?
Fantastic. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Becky. This has been absolutely, as you said, a delight. Really, really.
And thank you again, Halle. It was such a treat getting to talk with you. Oh my gosh. Okay, everybody, if you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with a friend. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really loved it, please leave a review. If you don't already, you can follow me on Instagram at beckybrett.live for daily information, inspiration, and support. And if you're looking for a coach, the link to my application is in the show notes. Remember, you can lose yourself in a maze, but you can find yourself in a labyrinth.